The OMORI Manga is something that we OMORI fans have been excited for a while now. It was teased all the way back in March of this year, with a short 50-second trailer at the very end of the fantastic 3rd anniversary concert. Each chapter has been released monthly since June 24th, so right now we have 2 chapters of the manga publicly available, and I think now is a good time for me to make a video talking about them, as a big fan of OMORI. In this video, I'll be giving a synopsis of both chapters, as well as my thoughts on what they did well and what I think they could have done better. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about the manga in the comments below. I'll be sure to read all of them and reply with some of my own input. If I get anything wrong also, please let me know. Also, I won't be speaking about any controversies relating to the manga's creator, Noei Kanoito, as in this video I only want to cover the manga itself. There will obviously be some spoilers in this video, nothing too major, but I can't properly dissect the plot without a little bit of foresight. So let's begin with a brief synopsis of what happens in both of these chapters. Chapter 1, Dear Little Brother, begins with a page depicting a cutscene from the game, with Basil and Sunny promising to be there for each other no matter what. We then get the 2 title pages showing our 6 main characters, Basil, Sunny, Aubrey, Kel, Hiro, and Ma. The manga seems to be telling the story differently to the source material, with the first scene being a flashback to Christmas 4 years ago in the past, when Sunny received his violin, a scene which is normally shown near the very end of the game. The scene does a very good job of succinctly showing off the personalities of each character in our friend group. Kel is lovably loud and impulsive, Hiro is a voice of reason, Basil and Aubrey are sweet and supportive, Sunny is non-verbal and generally apprehensive of anything, and Mari is the doting older sister. I like that the start of the scene is vibrant and filled with colour, but slowly drains of its colour and becomes monochrome as soon as Mari makes an appearance, and stays that way for the rest of the chapters. Sunny opens his present to find a jumbled mess resembling a violin, and is justifiably frightened as Mari creepily transforms into a horrific Hell Mari monster. Sunny then wakes up in a cold sweat, this having been a nightmare, with 3 days left before he moves out of town. He listens to a voicemail from his mum, and eats a steak. I find it funny that the manga doesn't even show him microwaving the steak like he does in the game, so it does make a little more sense that Sunny ends up getting sick this time. He goes to the bathroom, but gets jump scared by something blocking his way in. Sunny closes the door and reopens it, and there's nothing there. He does his business in the bathroom when he hears a knocking on the front door. Cautiously, he approaches, and as he walks down the stairs, we get a brief glimpse of the room, which we will later learn is Mari's piano room. There's a whole bait and switch to make you think this scene is going to be the Hell Mari scare that normally happens at this point in the game, but no, it's just everyone's favourite boy. Kel is so excited that Sunny answered the door that he drags him along to Hobbies to get a gift for his older brother Hiro, who is coming home from college soon. Kel talks about how much the town and the people living in it have changed since Sunny hid himself away. The boys arrive at Hobbies and look around for a gift, eventually settling on a Papa Chip's Chip Off the Old Block cookbook, which was chosen by Sunny because he remembered that Hiro had always wanted to be a chef when he was younger. As they leave Hobbies, Kel remarks that they should get the old friend group back together again to throw a surprise party for Hiro, but they hear someone pleading in the distance. They find Basil, who gets brutally bashed in the side of the head by Aubrey with a baseball bat, so hard he falls to the ground. Despite Kel's protestations, Aubrey mocks Sunny for locking himself away in his house while the world continued to change in the 4 years after Mari's death. When she mentions Mari, Sunny begins to have a breakdown, during which Aubrey attacks Kel and prepares to attack Sunny, but Sunny quickly grabs the steak knife he had in his pocket and savagely slashes Aubrey across the arm with it. A pile of Polaroid photos tumble out of Aubrey's pockets as she falls to the ground, and Sunny has another breakdown when he catches a glimpse of Mari in one of them. He passes out and we enter his dreams, White Space, where Sunny allows Omori to take over in his subconscious. Omori picks up the steak knife in his dream and enters Headspace, where we finally get to see the dream versions of our friends, who are all several years younger than they are in the present. Omori, Kel, Aubrey, and Hiro head off to the playground, where they meet Basil and Mari, and they prepare to have a picnic. The chapter ends with Mari greeting Omori, along with the iconic phrase, "My thoughts will follow you into your dreams." This chapter was alright. There are positives and negatives, but I'll talk about them later. On to chapter 2, A Home for Flowers. It seems like there'll be a pattern of chapters being named after tracks in the game's official soundtrack, which I think is cute. The group begin their picnic, and Basil shows the group his photo album, with all of the photos being the same as the ones in-game, but in the manga's distinct style. The picnic continues with the group talking about how Boss might reappear and cause a ruckus, but resolving to fight him off if he were to show himself. Basil tempts fate a little too much by suggesting that Boss is just misunderstood, right as Boss leaps out from his tree disguise and grabs him, knocking his flower crown off his head. Kel, Aubrey and Hiro leap into action, attacking Boss from all sides with rubber balls, plush toys and frying pans. Boss prepares his signature body slam, charging at Mari, but Omori saves the day by slicing Boss's leg, causing him to collapse and forcing him to let Basil go. Basil offers to let Boss hang out with the group if he wants, but he huffs away. Unfortunately, this tussle among trees has ruined the picnic, so Basil suggests that the group head over to his house, though Mari decides to stay back to clean up the mess and because her leg feels weak. So the gang of 5 head off to Basil's house, but stop by each of his garden patches so Basil can assign a flower to each character based on their personalities, as he does in-game. Basil is a sunflower because of his optimism and resolve to always look towards the sun. I wonder if that means anything in particular. Mari is a lily of the valley because of her healing nature and ghostly presence throughout the story. Aubrey is a gladiolus because of her strong will and integrity. Hiro is a rose because of his admirable and charming nature. Kel is a cactus because of his resilience to any problems. And Omori is a tulip because of his plainness. As they arrive at Basil's house, he quickly snaps a photo of the main party of 4, but Kel and Aubrey get into a shoving fight over who gets to see the photo first, resulting in Basil being knocked over by accident and dropping his album, spilling all of his photos everywhere. The group apologize to him and work together to put all the photos back in place. However, there is one extra photo on the ground, and Basil picks it up and looks at it. He falls to his knees as shadowy tendrils begin to protrude from him, to everyone's horror. He screams for Omori to help as he is engulfed by something and vanishes, leaving behind only scattered photos on the floor. This smoothly transitions into another in-game cutscene depicting Basil and Sunny in a black void, looking over blank Polaroids and promising to make new memories together. Back in the real world, Sunny wakes up and Kel confiscates his steak knife, chiding Sunny for carrying around such a dangerous tool. Basil greets Sunny more formally this time, though there is clear awkwardness between the two of them. Basil explains that Aubrey took his photo album, but Kel says that he and Sunny will help get it back from her. As Kel and Sunny head off, Kel mentions that they have no clue where Aubrey is, and they'll probably have to track her down by asking her hooligan friends. Meanwhile, Aubrey is shown angrily throwing the photo album into a bin, though she catches a glimpse of a photo of her, Kel, Sunny, and Basil as happier younger kids. She looks forlorn as she closes the bin and walks off to church. I think I enjoyed this second chapter a bit more than the first. Okay, let's start talking about what I like and dislike about this manga. Let's begin with the good stuff. For one, the art is fantastic, and easily the best aspect of the whole manga. The art used for the character designs remains close enough to the game's art to be easily recognizable, while also still being tweaked in the manga creator's own style to fit better with the manga medium. More notably, the horror art is amazing. The massive Hell Mari in the opening Christmas scene is thoroughly horrific and almost Junji Ito-esque, and the scene where Basil is engulfed by his something is unsettling. Even just that frame of Mari staring at Sunny with those hollow eyes prior to her Hell Mari transformation is super chilling. I'm very, very excited to see how the manga adapts the other horror scenes in the future, like the nightmare sequences and all of Black's face. I also like how Sunny can be more facially expressive in the manga. In the game, he's the playable character, meaning we usually only see his profile during battles, and even then, it's either complete neutrality or outright mortal fear. However, the manga can be a bit more liberal in its art style, and hence allow Sunny to be a lot more emotive. We still see him being mostly neutral or fearful in many scenes, especially when he encounters something. But he can also be pleasantly bewildered at an old friend turning up at his front door, or in wonder at the bright and bustling town he hasn't seen in years, or mildly irritated at having to loan money to said old friend. It just feels more immersive to be able to see the reactions of our protagonist to the crazy things happening around him, which is why making Sunny more expressive in the manga is a purely positive outcome in my opinion. There are also some individual scenes that I do think are great. The Christmas flashback scene at the beginning of chapter 1 is very cool. It introduces the 6 main characters in a succinct and natural way and presents a very intriguing hook for the horror to come. And, obviously, I do very much appreciate the Mari art in that scene. The fight against Boss, while very short, is a cute little introduction to how combat is going to look going forward in the manga. While I'm not too big of a fan of the little narration text boxes, because I'd rather not have actual mechanics from the game translated one-to-one into the manga, I do very much like how they make the attacks look a lot more visually dynamic than the more limited animations in the game. It's got me very interested in how they handle other bosses like Space Ex-Boyfriend, Sweetheart, maybe the Unbred Twins even, and how their attacks would look. I'm also interested to see if the emotions or follow-up mechanics will ever crop up in combat. Also, I like the final few pages of chapter 2 where they give Aubrey a bit more depth. Despite getting into a fight with them, deep down she still cares about her old friends. And I think this is a good way of conveying information to the reader in a way the game couldn't have, because in the game you're locked into the perspective of Sunny, the protagonist, and therefore you won't be able to ever see anything from outside of his own viewpoint. I hope the manga continues to show us additional context like this Aubrey scene, because it will give the manga a lot more value as its own piece of work rather than merely being a one-for-one retelling of the game's plotline. Unfortunately, there are still a plethora of issues with this manga. To start with, I am not a big fan of how they reordered a lot of the scenes we are shown compared to the game, because they mostly lessen the emotional impact of certain reveals. So far, the only one I liked was having that Christmas flashback at the very beginning of the manga because it's a good establishing scene. Having the first Headspace arc happen in the middle of the first real world arc was a horrible choice in my opinion. In the game, having you as a player begin the story in Headspace is a very deliberate and clever choice. It showcases a happier, idealized view of Sunny's past. All of his friends are as they were 4 years ago before the big tragedy of Mari's passing, and you spend a lot of time getting invested in these wacky versions of the characters running around this wacky dream world. Only then do you get hit with a heavy whiplash when Sunny ventures out into the real world and sees how much the town changed compared to his dreams. The manga, on the other hand, chooses to put the first Headspace adventure right in the middle of Sunny's first outing, which is really weird narratively, and I feel like it takes a lot of weight off the emotional reveals, as well as sort of screwing up a lot of the pacing, which is another main issue with this manga so far. The pacing is pretty stilted. Linking back to the previous criticism, I feel like plopping a whole Headspace arc right in the middle of a real world arc, especially right after an intense confrontation, is pretty stupid. We get to see the scene where Sunny brutally attacks Aubrey in the real world, then we have to stop everything to have a brief but completely irrelevant adventure in a dream, and then we go back to the real world where we don't see the aftermath of what happened. It slows everything down in a very strange and unnatural way. Furthermore, there's a cruel irony in that the main criticism that the game receives is that a lot of the content feels like filler to artificially extend the playtime, which slows the pacing down, whereas the manga mainly struggles with what I feel is the opposite problem. It doesn't have enough filler and it goes way too fast. I feel like a lot of the content is trimmed down so heavily because they want to fit as much story as they can into each chapter. Stuff like Basil's photo album and the boss fight are shortened by a fair amount, and other content like the hide and seek game and the something in the dark nightmare are downright omitted. This also causes another problem in that the manga certainly feels a lot more serious than its game counterpart, as a lot of the removed content exists to add some lightheartedness to the proceedings. I understand that Omori is first and foremost a work of psychological horror, but the levity and surreal comedy are still strong selling points of the franchise. However, I feel like this problem is mostly found in chapter 1, with chapter 2 flowing a fair bit smoother. And now we're at my biggest gripe, the absolute assassination of Aubrey's character. Oh my god, what have they done to her? Aubrey's establishing real world scene is a butchered mess and I hate it so much. For context, in the game's version of this scene, Kel and Sunny stumble upon Basil pleading to Kim, Aubrey's right-hand woman, for his photo album back, and it's only when Kel intervenes that Aubrey and the rest of the hooligans turn up. And even then, she simply mocks Sunny in a single line of dialogue for hiding away in his little bubble, and completely drops the insult once Kel rebukes her cruelty. Then, she only engages in a physical fight when Kel challenges her. In the manga, on the other hand, Basil is seen pleading with Aubrey directly and receives a bat to the face for the effort, so we immediately see that she's much more aggressive in this adaptation. Her first bit of dialogue to Sunny is the same mockery as in the game, so fair enough. But then when Kel calls her out, she keeps going on and on and on about how Sunny is a loser shut-in who runs away from his problems, and it's like way too far. Sure, if Kel would have yelled at her more and pushed her buttons a bit, then fine, I could see her wildly lashing out in this vicious way. We know she's capable of it, because she does so in the game's church fight. But the fact that in the manga she just twists the knife into Sunny completely unprompted makes her come off as needlessly cruel and significantly less sympathetic than her game counterpart. It just comes off as Aubrey being way too vicious and cruel to Sunny, to the point that it's completely out of character in my opinion. She's also excessively physically violent. She tries to attack Kel despite him not even intending in any way to fight back, before attempting to take a swing at the presumably defenseless Sunny while prattling on about how she won't ever forgive him, and it's all simply infuriating. In the game, this whole scene was phrased as a silly fist fight between teenagers in the park. In the manga, this is framed like a case of aggravated assault. Aubrey was already a somewhat polarizing character in the Omori community due to the ways she lashes out at others as a grief coping mechanism, making her feel somewhat unsympathetic, and this manga presentation of her isn't doing her much of a favor. While she does have that nice little moment at the end of chapter 2 which tries to give her some more depth, it definitely doesn't justify the character assassination in her opening scene. So yes, there are plenty of positives, but also negatives which I found while reading these 2 chapters. So, would I recommend the Omori manga? It definitely depends. If you haven't played the game and are new to Omori as a franchise, then no. I think the game will give you a much more fulfilling experience, and I recommend that you play that first and then read the manga. If you have played the game or are already familiar with the game's story, and if you enjoyed Omori obviously, then sure, by all means I recommend that you read the manga. Despite its problems, it's still a fun read as a big fan of Omori. Now let's talk about what I'm looking forward to for the future of this manga. Well, the hooligans are some of my favourite characters in the game, and they're confirmed to be appearing in the next chapter, so I'm excited for that. I'm also looking forward to some more spectacular horror, as I've been saying throughout the video, and hopefully some fixes to the problems I outlined thus far. So yeah, that's my review of the first 2 chapters of the Omori manga. If this video does well, I might make this a monthly thing where I review each chapter as it comes out. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and tell me your thoughts on the manga in the comments. I'd love to hear them. See you guys in the next video.